Today we're at Fleury, just north of Verdun, and we're here to take a look at the village that literally died for France. In 1914, the village of Fleury was going to find itself right on the front line between the French and the Germans. Through the course of the war, the village here at Fleury was going to be captured, lost and recaptured by the French and then the Germans no less than 16 times. That meant it became an absolute war zone, and by the end of the war it was completely destroyed. Today we're going to take a look around and visit some of the ruins of the village of Fleury and see what is still here today. In the early 1900s, the village of Fleury had just over 400 inhabitants. It was a quiet, sleepy village that had never experienced the likes of what was to come over the next couple of years. On the 21st of February 1916, the residents of the village here were awoken by the shelling that preceded the German attack. On the 24th of February, Fort Douaumont was lost to the Germans, which meant this village was sitting just behind the front line. In May, fighting got closer to the village here, and in early June, with the loss of Fort Vaux, that meant that the village of Fleury de Douaumont was literally right on the front line. By that stage it had already been subject to massive shelling, and all that was left was smoky ruins. But it wasn't going to stop there. This village remained on the front line, literally no man's land, captured by the Germans, captured by the French again and again, no less than 16 times through the course of the fighting here. Now today there is zero remains of that village. After the war it was decided that the land here was too dangerous. It was still full of ammunition, still poisoned with the gas sitting in the ground from the gas attacks that occurred here. And of course there were numerous dead bodies in the ground and all over the land here, and the inhabitants of Fleury were simply not able to return. So when you first arrive at the site here and you walk down the pathway, the first thing you see is just shell holes and craters and land that is torn up, like probably as bad if not worse than any section of the front lines that you will see around Verdun. You do not go a single step without another crater, another shell hole, and you can see everything is left in absolute tatters, even today, more than 100 years after the war. So we've kind of moved down into the sort of, not quite the centre, but further into what was Fleury. And when you walk here, you start to see all of these little signposts that are around, and those are telling you what was on those sites originally. We're going to go take a look at a couple of those in a minute. We're just walking on this pathway here, and this actually was one of the little streets that ran through this village. More specifically, it was St. Nicholas Street, or Rue St. Nicholas, which ran through the village just here. So we've just moved over to the right hand side now, and this was Rue Mathelin, or Mathelin Street, moving up in this direction. And again you can just see not just shell holes, but also the remains of some of the things that were here. You can see little bits of stone and rocks in the edge of the shell holes, and as we move down again we have these little signposts that start to tell us some of what was going on the land that we are currently walking. So here in front of us we've got these bits of stone and rock and ruins and just huge shell holes, but what we actually are looking at here was the home of the baker, the local boulanger or baker of Fleury. Lived right here on this spot in front of us. His home became completely destroyed during the course of the war here. So the baker's home off to our right here, just next door to the baker, was the wine grower. The wine grower lived just here on this plot. Again, his home and his life completely destroyed by the Great War. So over on this side of the village, quite a few of these little plots, this one over here behind us and this one here too, this whole area was part of the farm, the agricultural area of Fleury. Just here in front of us. Now there's something quite interesting which I've spotted down this way at the end of this little pathway, which we're going to go take a look at now. So when you come to just beyond the farm area here at Fleury, you come into this little kind of gardened off area, and in here there is one lone grave. That is the grave of Colonel Leon Rodier. Colonel Leon Rodier. Now, he is actually a World War II veteran, but he was instrumental in the preservation of the land here. And so when he died in 2008, he is buried here at Fleury. Now, one thing you see a lot of when you're walking around here are tree remains or trees that have been cut off. That's because, of course, the land was so unstable here that a lot of trees were felled later or had to be taken down when they became dangerous. And just along the pathway here is something quite interesting that relates to the land changing here over time. So we've just come to a spot with a little memorial, and in 2013 at this plot right here, during some land disturbance of some sort, I haven't fully been able to understand, I believe it was a tree being uprooted or something like that. On this plot they found the graves of 26 French soldiers who had been in an underground area, possibly a basement area here, and so this little memorial is placed here, carved out of a tree. The memorial to the 26 soldiers that were found here. Now, some of them were identified, not all of them, but this little plaque commemorates that. We have the names of some of the soldiers who were found here. Now, of course, what's happened here is not unusual. There are sites all around Verdun, and in fact sites all along the Great War front line. The Somme, for example, has villages the same that were kind of included into almost like a red belt area, that they were just completely destroyed. So this isn't unusual what we're seeing here, but the site here at Fleury has just been preserved almost exactly as it was, which makes it a really interesting site to walk around. So another site here in front of us at Fleury, and essential to every village of the time, this was the wash house. The wash house was right here in front of us in the village of Fleury. Now, what does any good village have? Well, we've just come to a little site here, and I'm going to show you. So here is the site of the cafe grocery. Now, it might not have been a cafe as we know it, it probably was like a grocery store or a store that would show goods of some sort, but this was the cafe Épicerie, just here. A site which in its own way is particularly sad here is, of course, this was not a village just of soldiers or adults even, it was families and children, and this was the site of the school. So the school in the village of Fleury was just here, completely destroyed by shell fire. So this site we're on now was the site of the town hall here in the village, and they actually have a monument up here, and this is a monument to the soldiers who were killed, who were from Fleury. You can see here, and I don't speak French, but says in fonts, Mos pour la France, so the children of Fleury, the soldiers from Fleury who were killed in the fighting in the Great War. So the memorial we were just looking at is up there, and it's not the only memorial. Here we have another memorial which is actually dedicated to those who died here in Fleury. So not necessarily from Fleury, but who were killed in this area during the fighting. So at the end of the war, the land here was just completely destroyed. Shell holes everywhere, all of the buildings destroyed. But even more so than that, there was a huge amount of live ammunition still in the ground. Not to mention the remains of poison gas. Poison gas was used fairly heavily in the fighting here, and the land had become poisoned with it, impregnated with potential live gas shells still in the ground. Of course, that's not forgetting all of the bodies that lay in the ground here. There were dead soldiers, both French and German, all through the land here and all through the ground. Those things combined meant that the people of Fleury just simply could not return to their homes. There was nothing left here for them. This village had died, and so this area was left as a memorial to that, and Fleury devant Douaumont became officially known as the village that died for France. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I've really enjoyed walking around here, and you can feel the sadness of what happened to the people who lived here. People who just were innocently going about their lives. The baker, the local residents, the wine grower, and their lives were torn apart by the Great War. And sometimes it's important to remember that it's not just the soldiers who were fighting the war whose lives were destroyed by it. Sometimes it ruins the lives of innocent people like the residents here at Fleury. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.